Dangote Refinery has begun the production of long-awaited petrol, a development that is a major milestone in Nigeria's energy sector. Dangote's refinery production will impact billions of dollars of trade in fuel markets regionally and beyond. Nigeria is a global demand point for the fuel, receiving almost 250,000 barrels a day in shipments last year, mostly from Europe. Despite spending billions of dollars on turnaround maintenance of its 4 official refineries for more than 2 decades, Nigeria has been unable to get those refineries to work. Nigeria, which consumes, we're told, about 66 million liters of petrol daily on the average, currently spends a huge chunk of its budget, exceeding $10 billion by some estimates, on the importation of fuel every year. I'm now being joined by Segun Ajayi-Kadir, Director General Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Great to have you on this program. This is live, the Sunday talk show, Mr. Ajayi-Kadir.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dr. Abati. Thank you.
Well, you are Director General of the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. You've been quoted in some reports that I saw as saying that, look, this hike in fuel price will erode the purchasing power of Nigerians. We've seen in the report by Omalakwe of Rice News how ordinary people are affected. But how is manufacturing also affected? If the people don't have a purchasing power parity, if they lose that, the manufacturers, would they be able to manufacture? Where do we find ourselves? What do you think?
Yes, the increase in the price of fuel is actually a major concern for everyone. For the manufacturer, I think in terms of direct impact, as it affects production, it will only pertain to maybe small-scale industrialists who actually use petrol in the process of manufacturing. But beyond that, and going to our consumers, because a manufacturer, the major thing he does is to produce, and that's what most people know. But the important thing is for him to sell. Otherwise, if he does not sell, those products become a burden to him. One, he will have to hire warehouses where he will have to keep those finished products. And if they have shelf life, if it expires, he's going to have to pay a lot to be able to dispose of it. So selling is critical. But when the prices go up, what happens is that the cost of logistics will go up. The average Nigerian will now have to spend more on transportation and fueling the generator owing to the lack of performance of the electricity grid. And then he will have less to be able to spend on locally manufactured products. So for us, it is a major issue in terms of, one, the cost of our logistics, transporting our goods from, especially those of us who source our raw materials locally, and in terms of our retailers, being able to take things from our industries by the wholesalers, and then the wholesalers to the retailers and getting it to the market. By the time it gets into the market, the price will have gone up due to the increase in cost of transportation, and the average Nigerian will find it very difficult to be able to buy. So he scales down on the amount that he's going to buy. Never also forget that even the minimum wage that has been introduced by government and the expected consequential adjustment is yet to take place. So the average disposable income of the citizen has gone down, and then you have rising cost. The manufacturers have indicated, and I think as at the last count, we had more than 780 billion in terms of unsold inventory, which means that now we are going to have much more of those in our warehouses, and we will be unable to sell. So for us, it's a major crisis.
Okay, Mr. Ajayi-Kadir. President Tinubu was most recently in China. He arrived, he had the meeting with Li Qiang, the premier. He met with the president, Xi Jinping. And then on the last day of the FOCAC, which was the main reason, September 4 to 6, he met with Nigerians living in China. And he told them that this fuel price hike It's inevitable. And the Nigerians should be ready and willing to make sacrifices. Why are manufacturers and SMEs saying they don't want to make sacrifice? Because the president says, look, you have to make this sacrifice before we can get to El Dorado.
Yes, for every reform, like has been introduced by Mr. President, there must be pains. And so what people look up to is there must be pain that you are able to ascertain, and there must be a period where people will overcome the pain, where measures will have to be taken for the people to be able to overcome the pain. And we must see a demonstration of a clear pathway for you to be able to move from pain to gain. So I think Mr. President is right in the sense that some of the policies that he introduced will naturally bring some distortions, some pains to not only manufacturers, but for the citizens. But what I think the concern here is the fact that, yes, those pains must be determined, and there must be time frame for overcoming them, and mitigating measures that are taken, we must be able to get traction on them as quickly as possible, because all those reforms are impacting the same set of citizens and the same set of industries. So there has to be communication as to what those pains are supposed to be, when they are going to be mitigated, and what measures government is taking to be able to assure the people. And I believe all of us as
government is providing palliatives. They are going to supply over 300,000 metric tons of rice. But for you to access the rice, you must have your NIN, National Identification Number, and all of that. Government has given states of the Federation trucks of maize, millet, sorghum, and all that. Isn't that enough? If that is enough, and you think that the pains are inevitable, why are manufacturers complaining? Why should SMEs complain?
Okay,
Since you understand and you appreciate what the president is saying.
Yes, we understand, we appreciate what Mr. President is saying, but it doesn't mean that there are no pains. And it doesn't mean that businesses are immediately enjoying those palliatives, like you mentioned. I think it is critical for us to focus on implementation on some of those measures that Mr. President has put in place. It is critically important for us to understand that Nigeria has never been short of policies and measures that are made to mitigate some challenges, be it business-related or citizen-related. But we need to be able to gain traction on when those measures are going to come into place, and how those who have been saddled with responsibility of delivering on those are doing it in a timeous manner. You can see from the video that was shown before, everybody is calling on Mr. President to be able to intervene, that people are suffering and all that. So there has to be a communication that assures the people that, look, this is the challenge you are having. These are the measures we are taking. We expect that these measures will become manifest in this period, and so you should expect some relief. I believe that will be able to give them. And at the same time, we must deliberately address those issues where the pains are being inflicted. For instance, what we are seeing now is the increase in the price of petrol. But what are we doing to mitigate that increase? If we were producing petrol domestically, are we going to have this same percentage of increase? I mean, are we able to assure the people that, look, over a period of time, we are going to ramp up of local production, and we are likely to see a winding down in the cost? That will assure the people that government in itself is conscious of what is happening, and that it will not be pain. That at some point, there will be a convergence, there will be an assurance, there will be a certainty that the people are going to get away from it. Don't forget that apart from the high cost, there's also the scarcity of it. So are we going to be able to guarantee sufficiency of supply? And are the people going to be able to, at some point, benefit from the natural endowment that the country has in abundance?
Okay, Mr. Kadir, earlier on you mentioned the Dangote Refinery. The Dangote Refinery was supposed to represent a ray of hope for Nigerians, with the expectation that if it's able to meet the target of 650,000 barrels of finished product per day, that, we will not have the problem of fuel scarcity. But Dangote says he is ready to make PMS available the highest grade in the world, Euro 5, and all of that. But we have this back and forth with NMPC Limited. NMPC Limited issued a statement yesterday that they are not a monopoly off-taker. Anybody that wants to buy PMS from Dangote is free to go there and buy. Okay? Dangote Refinery is saying, well, government is the one determining the price. NMPC Limited issued a statement and said, no, Section 205 of the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021 says market forces are in charge. This is where we are. As of today, for you to be able to buy fuel, you have to pay as much as over 1,000 naira per liter. And that's Dangote Refinery not yet, loading the market with products. What do you say about that? Dangote Refinery is a manufacturing company. Yes. I guess the company is one of your member companies. Yes.
Dr. Abati, honestly, this is a very serious matter. And I believe that many Nigerians should weigh in on this. And I'm sure it's going to attract the attention of Mr. President. Nigeria is a very great country, the biggest economy in Africa. And we are in doubt. All over the world, Nigerians are performing excellently. So it's become something very worrisome that we are now having this back and forth on a matter that is affecting the livelihood of the average Nigerian. I was a bit confused myself because when Dangote, who is an eminent member, like we said, of our association, and without any doubt, the #1 manufacturer in Africa, whom we are well pleased. But the issue is that he said he was waiting for NMPC. NMPC now comes out to say he's not waiting for us, that he does not have to wait for us. It's willing buyer, willing seller.
Yes, that's what it is.
But when I did my homework, because I wanted to clear my doubt, I discovered that NMPC was reacting to one group, maybe Murik or something.
Murik, yeah.
Yes. And then reacting to them and saying that, look, Dangote does not have to wait for us. And then the Dangote coming out to say that, look, we are hanging on until we have the go-ahead from NMPC. My take is that the response to Murik does not amount to a permission or a license or a go-ahead for Dangote to sell. I wonder, and having worked with manufacturing industries for more than 3 decades, I know that the eagerness of a manufacturer is to hit the market. I don't think Dangote will want to constrain himself from going into the market. If there are no regulatory hurdles that needed to be crossed, he will have hit the market. He said he was ready in 48 hours and that he was waiting on NMPC. So I think there has to be a deliberate attempt. And Mr. President may consider just ordering an interaction and engagement between NMPC and Dangote refineries so that we'll be able to cut this crap and let Nigerians have what Dangote has. The fact that Dangote is refining locally, something we've not been able to do for decades, should be a source of joy for Nigerians. And so we should be able to take advantage of the fact that he is producing here. Mr. President have said that they should sell to him in Naira, which means that it may inevitably lead to a reduction in the cost of the petrol that we are going to buy. So I don't think there should be any hurdle. There should be no back and forth. We should just call the crap, and Mr. President should direct that NMPC and Dangote should meet within the week. We have started the week now. And so that we are able to have a definite direction. We do not have to pay more for a product that we can pay less.
Mr. Kadir, NMPC Limited is now a limited liability company. NMPC Limited is saying, if we want to buy, we can buy from Dangote. Other people can also go and buy. Yes. Right?
Yes.
So NMPC Limited is saying it's not in a position to dictate to other people to buy. And the federal government says subsidy has been removed. So where is the glitch here?
Dr. Abati, that is my concern. And I'm thinking, and that was why I alluded to the fact that a manufacturer would naturally be eager to hit the market. So if there are no regulatory constraints, I doubt if Dangote
NMPC Limited is not the regulator. The regulator is the midstream and downstream petroleum regulatory agency.
Sure.
And I'm surprised that nobody is talking about that agency. That's the regulatory agency,
Yes.
not NMPC.
Yeah, I think it has always been subsumed under NMPC. So people just assume that whatever is coming from them is coming from NMPC. And in most cases, when you had expected that regulatory agency to respond to critical issues, NMPC had come to respond. So people just naturally assume that they're either one and the same or they're acting in concert. But the truth of it must be that we should just cut through the red tape, because this is not a business issue any longer. It's a matter of livelihood. It's a matter of well-being. I mean, I was so appalled when I heard ordinary Nigerians, what you played before now, indicating that they cannot just move. And you can see food inflation is going above 40%. There is no way an average Nigerian is going to survive with an additional cost of transportation and food. My wife told me that just within the week, the prices of what they are buying is more than 30% has jumped. I mean, how would somebody who is even earning less than 70,000? And the unfortunate thing is that Mr. President, especially in the stabilization plan, has put in clear measures that will be able to get us out of this mess very quickly. So I'm actually just wondering why we continue to have hiccups everywhere, and we are not having the kind of coordination that should deliver on the very critical measures that this administration has recognized and has put on the table. We need to move quickly from theory to practice. We need to be able to get the people to understand that President Tinubu does not intend that the challenges we have must remain with us.
Okay, some people are of the view that the problem with the downstream sector is that it has not really been deregulated. And whereas we have deregulation with diesel, we have deregulation with kerosene, some people are saying President Tinubu should take the bold step of coming forward and saying PMS in the downstream sector has been deregulated. Do you support that view?
I would. I mean, seeing that we now have a player in the market, and that is not only Dangote, we have 2 or 3 other refineries. So they should be able to fill in the gap. I mean, it's a matter of national security for us to continue to rely on importation of fuel. You can just imagine if those who supply petrol decide to cut Nigeria off for some reasons. That means that our economy is going to be paralyzed.
They've done so already.
Exactly.
The traders say we are owing $6.8 billion. Yeah.
So, I mean, and the truth of it is that if we were refining locally, we would have been able to resolve these issues. I mean, we are going to save nothing less than 35% of the current foreign exchange exposure we have in importation if we refine locally. And I mean, that should be something that is a joyous news to those of us who operate in the Nigerian economy. The diesel, the petrol, they have come to play a very important role in production and consumption. So I think literally, I mean, without this no-brainer, that if you are able to do well in these areas, you will be able to reflate the economy. And I believe that it is possible for us to go through the reform of Mr. President and do the right things to mitigate the pains. They are necessary pains, Dr. Abacha, I must tell you.
Well, Nigerian Labour Congress is saying that the Nigerian people have been betrayed. That when the negotiations over national minimum wage was ongoing, that they were given, Labour was given the assurance that government could not pay 250,000 naira that Labour was demanding, but will pay 70,000 naira, and gave the assurance that fuel price will not go up. Now the same government has increased fuel price. Now civil society organizations are saying, well, by October 1, they are going to go back on the streets. So manufacturers are complaining, SMEs are complaining. It looks like there is a very serious cost ahead of us if the people, out of anger, go onto the streets.
Dr. Abati, let me say up front that I hope that October 1, nobody will go on the street. Because every time people go on the street, every time businesses are not able to operate, we lose billions of naira, if not trillions of naira. And so what it means is that government has a long notice and they should do everything to mitigate it. Unfortunately, in terms of the minimum wage, 3 of us started the negotiation, the government, the labor, and the private sector. Unfortunately, when it was going to be ultimately concluded, the private sector was kept out of it. So we are not privy to what concessions had been made before labor agreed at 70,000. But I mean, and I don't want to weigh in on the side of labor to say that that was what was promised. But if that was what was promised, I think it is critically important for us to be completely open. And at the time we signed off on the minimum wage negotiation, what we said was that whatever we are going to agree upon may not be sufficient, but that it will be manageable or acceptable if there are other add-ons. So my assumption is that during the negotiation period, there were some trade-offs between the federal government and the labor. And if labor is now saying that what they agreed is not being adhered to, I think the government may want to quickly open up a conversation with them so that we are able to avert the October 1 or whatever follow-up action they are doing. It doesn't pay anybody any good, not for labor, not for Nigerians, not for the economy, and not for the government. So I think we all have to put our cards on the table, be frank to each other, engage, to be able to avoid a possible lockdown of the economy and for us to resolve our issues. Like I said, Dr. Abati, these issues are not difficult. All the solutions are in the room. I think we just have to do the right thing and continue to do it for us to be able to get out of it.
Okay, as we begin to wrap up, you said President Tinubu should intervene personally. What exactly do you expect him to do? Number 2, the face-off, as it were, between Dangote Refinery and NMPC Limited. I thought that the relevant agency will be the NMDPRA, but you say NMDPRA hides under NMPC Limited. The face-off that is purportedly out there in the public domain, how do you think it should be resolved?
Okay, so I mean, the two, I would like to link the two because that's the big elephant in the room. I think that Mr. President should direct NMPC and, of course, the regulatory agency to have an engagement with Dangote Refineries so that they are able to remove any regulatory measure or any regulatory step that needed to be made so that Dangote Refinery will be able to hit the market immediately because that is necessary. He has given a directive that crude oil should be sold to Dangote in Naira. I think the next step is also to ensure that crude oil is actually sold to Dangote refineries and that there are no limitations for Dangote to get to the market. I believe that is where we need to come from. And as for other measures that this administration has put on the table for us to be able to get out of the current economic situation we have, Mr. President may as well advise that steps be taken to accelerate implementation so that Nigerians start to feel the impact of the economic stabilization plan, which has been widely acknowledged as something that can get us out of this crisis because it's a worldwide economic downturn that we are witnessing. Nigeria cannot be an exception, but we have been able to develop a stakeholder engagement that has produced that plan. And I think we need to speedily implement it so that the people will start to feel the relief that it is meant to deliver.
Okay, just before we go, what Nigerians know is the Dangote Refinery, because perhaps of the volume of expected production. But we have other refineries in Nigeria. There's a company called Watersmith Refinery in Owerri, which has just been granted a license for the construction of phase 2 and the production of 5,000 additional barrels of petroleum on a daily basis. Now, this argument that people put up about the Dangote Refinery, should it also apply to other refineries, private investments, like the Watersmith Refinery in Owerri?
Yes, absolutely and certainly. I mean, the prayer and the aspiration should be that we should have many more Dangotes. We should have many more modular refineries. We should have many more refineries operating from different parts of the country. As a matter of fact, there will also be the issue of logistics in terms of movement, seeing the insecurity that we have. So the more of those refineries we have, enjoying the same incentives that government may want to give, like selling crude oil in Naira, and even incentivizing, encouraging banks, the BOIs of this world, and some development funding to be able to support the emergence and the growth of those other smaller refineries, just as Dangote. So while preserving Dangote, we should encourage more investment in that space.
Okay, we have to go now, but before we go, do you have any hope that the refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna will ever be completed and functional, become functional, in the face of all the promises that we have received from government?
Yes, I mean, my friend just told me that 3 times we have failed to meet the targets this year. And I think it is important that they come to work. It is critical that they should, and I believe Nigerians must insist that we have our refineries working. The more, the merrier.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Segun Ajayi-Kadir, Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria.